And good eve and good morning, folks. Almost said good evening, out of a force of habit. And welcome to the show. I'm your host, Sam Whitfield, here live from Right to Vent Media Studios in South Florida, and I want to welcome everyone to the show. Usually I don't do morning shows, but uh suffice to say, last night's Whitfield's Report Live for Wednesday, only the first half hour was recorded. Not really sure why, but that's just, technical problems, I guess. And then I was trying to start a stream this morning, but the new Rumble Studio is, it still has some kinks. It's still in the beta, but that's why I'm willing to, test these things out. So, yeah, anyway, figured I would do kind of a show, here this morning and, just help people, uh, give some of my thoughts on what's going on with Iran and everything else, because things are pretty hectic right now, but also somewhat pretty good. So it seems like that things in the region might actually be looking up, for Iran, which is good, honestly. So and it looks like we are alive, so that is that's good as well. So anywho, before we get started, though, I do want to, promo my new book that's coming out on Tuesday, and that is American Inferno, the fifth John Ryder novel in the Shadows of Deception saga. So I am very excited to have that out to you guys this week, and should be pretty epic. So also, um, hello to King Gravana in chat. No, actually, King Gravana, it wasn't you that got stuck. For some reason, Rumble Studio did not want to record last night's stream, or only wanted to record the first half hour of the stream, which is kind of a pain because like we did a 2 hour stream last night, actually more like 2 hours and 30 minutes covering a lot of the Iran stuff. So it's a shame that that wasn't fully recorded. This new Rumble Studio does have some kinks, but I think I have them figured out. It was operator error on my ends. But anyway, thanks for tuning in. So, but yeah, as I mentioned before, American Inferno comes out on Tuesday. Super excited to be able to get this into your hands very soon. And yeah, so uh, looking forward to that. King Ron. Yeah, I don't know what was going on with Rumble Studio last night. It looked good from it, the funny thing is it was looking good from our end last night. Everything seemed to be going good, but then like after the show ended, I looked and like only the first half hour is recorded, so I'm not sure what's going on. But we're here now, so glad to be here. Anyway, I want to get uh, you know, into the topic of why we're all here, which is Iran, and the Ayatollah is dead. Rest in peace, that terrible dictator. Glad he's dead. And that's, kind of the point. If you wanted to end the show right here or tune out, that's kind of what I'm saying. Um, and but tr- but the media basically is, they've been flipping out as per usual. They always do. And they're saying, "Oh, Trump is a warmonger and Trump is, just bowing down to Israel and whatnot." And no, that's not true at all. In fact, we've had beef with Iran of our own for like the last 50 years. Pan Am Lockerbie, uh, the Olympic, hostage situation. I mean, hell, Iran was tied to the group that facilitated 9/11. They basically sponsor, terror cells all over the world and fight us, via proxy. But people are specifically going after Donald Trump, or trying to, and saying that he's bowing down to the Warhawks. He's bowing down to the neocons. And, well, folks, as we pointed out, his position on Iran has actually been consistent for the last 45 years. In fact, I have a clip that's resurfaced and kind of gone viral on the internet over the past couple days. This is you know, this is an old clip from 1980 where Trump is talking about the Iran situation. And as someone mentioned, as Morpheus mentioned on stream last night, actually, boy, he does look an awful lot like Barron here, or rather, Barron looks a lot like him. So this is Donald Trump talking about the Iran situation in 1980. And yeah, let's check in here. So
obviously, you're advocating that we should have gone in there with troops, etc., and brought our boys out. I absolutely feel that, yes.
Donald Trump has been so ideologically consistent that it is actually almost hard to wrap your brain around. So watch this video. This is from October of 1980, 40 plus years ago. Listen to Donald Trump being asked about military intervention as it pertains to Iran.
When you get the respect of the other countries, then the other countries tend to do a little bit as you do, and you can create the right attitudes. The Iranian situation is a case in point. That they hold our hostages is just absolutely and totally ridiculous. That this country sits back and allows a country such as Iran to hold our hostages, to my way of thinking, is a horror. And I don't think they'd do it with other countries. I honestly don't think they'd do it with other countries. Obviously, you're advocating that we should have gone in there with troops, etc., and brought our boys out. I absolutely feel that, yes. I don't think there's any question, and there's no question in my mind.
Don't you love seeing those?
So there you have it. Trump has been ideologically consistent about Iran for the past, 40 plus years. I don't know what else, people want. Like, all these commentators, and I said this last night, but like, when did we start taking Dave Smith's opinions seriously as a political commentator? And also, this is my beef, not just with him, but with, like, a bunch of other, comedians. Owen Benjamin used to do this, famously, too, all the time, right? Um, you know, you put an opinion out there, and, you claim to know the facts and everything, and then when you're wrong, instead of, like, admitting that you're wrong or something, like, what a lot of these, commentators will do, specifically in the case of, like, Dave Smith, he'll do the, "Oh, I'm just a comedian, bro," bit. Also, can we also say that, like, Dave Smith is a self-hating Jew? Like, is that allowed? Um, because honestly, seems like that's the case, for Dave. Every time I see him on, Twitter, he's, like, railing against any, interaction with, you know, anything with Trump. Yeah. Black Pill Phil wants to jump in, so hold on, sir. I will get you the, invite here, real quick. But yeah, basically, a lot of these commentators who are flipping the fuck out, they have no idea, like, what the history of America, and Iran really even is. It's I would say it's shocking, but honestly, I'm not surprised. Now, like, granted, in the case of, like, Nick Fuentes and whatnot, you could make the argument that he's ignorant because he's young and he wasn't around in the '80s and whatnot. But that argument only goes so far because, like, neither was I. I wasn't alive, in 1980. I was born in the '90s. I wasn't around for the fall of the Shah that happened in the '70s. Most of my audience wasn't alive then. Yet, this audience knows the history, uh, pretty much. And even if you don't, like, this is one of those things where you only have to do like a quick tangential search with like Grok. Hell, even ChatGPT at Google, will give you this information that's somewhat accurate. So, yeah, this whole thing of, oh, Trump is just this whole strike in Iran is just because of Israel. No, that's not the case at all. Um, so yeah, people are being dumb. So, but yeah, Phil, I just sent you the link, and this is a new setup. So, I'm hoping that will work for you. I just sent it to your DMs, so hopefully that will work. But yeah, so the Ayatollah is gone, and we've been seeing videos basically of Iranians like, you know, happy about it. And like I can't play any of the clips because it would be I would get copyright struck on YouTube, but there is the viral clip of the Iranian baddies dancing to the YMCA song. That's another thing. Can we please deport like white fat liberal women, the blue the blued haired nose ring feminists? Can we deport them to uh the Middle East and trade them for the Persian hotties. That seems like a fairly okay trade in my book. So yeah. Also, let's see. King Guarana asks, well, first off, you can buy the book on Amazon. King Guarana. Also, which country had the bomb? I th- well, I think it's technically it was us, but like we flew out of one of our bases in the region. So anyway, while we're waiting for Fluffy Phil to show up or Black Pill Phil, whatever you're going by these days, Phil, I'm not really sure. Dana Lash had a really good reaction to all of this on Monday, and she lays out pretty much, you know, why America has had a beef with Iran for the past 50 years or so. Let me switch tabs here. And all right. There we are. So here is Dana Lash, who is a podcaster and political commentator, laying out basically, what's been going on in the region, and yeah, why this is such a big deal, and also, she has the same criticism that I do of Tucker and other people who are flipping out about this.
We're at the top of this first hour here on Monday, getting you set up with all of the latest and what to expect. So it was starting from before the strikes, there were a lot of indications that something was going down. I told you Friday, you had the ambassador, U.S. ambassador in Israel, Mike Huckabee, who sent out an email saying that American people, staffers in the embassy, et cetera, and others need to make accommodations to get home sooner rather than later, was the language that he used. And it was language designed to not freak people out and cause mass panic, but it was a language that indicated necessity of speed. And then, of course, there was the representative from Oman who was meeting the administration in D.C. on Saturday as Ramadan kicked off. So there were, and he was to give Iran's answer to Geneva on Saturday. So it seemed as though they weren't expecting already. And you can tell that from what POTUS was discussing with the negotiations, how, yeah, it doesn't seem like Iran is really going to come to the table in good faith. As you heard him say, we thought we had a deal and then they walked away. And we thought we had a deal and then they walked away. And kept doing it over and over again. And he said, okay, that's it. It was very interesting. The media was very eager to go after POTUS with the whole line in the sand thing, right? And the reason they were doing this is because of what Barack Obama had done with the line in the sand with Iran. So they were saying, oh, Trump is in a very difficult spot. He has this line in the sand for Iran. What is he gonna, like, they were fully anticipating him to do what Barack Obama did, yet they defended Barack Obama when he did it. Trump actually makes them, he not only enforces the line, he takes the the Khamenei's face and shoves it in the line with a bomb and totally, murks him off this mortal coil. And so, yeah, I would say that that's a very big difference. Now, this is how we're going to break down Iran, because I want everyone to understand. One of the things I say quite often on this program is I don't care if you agree with me, just make sure that you're disagreeing with me and agreeing with me based on fact. So leading up to this, because there are a lot of people, and I really do think that the media is inflating and trying to really drive this division of between Trump and his own base. You need to be very careful who you listen to right now. And I'm saying that with all the sincerity I can muster. You need to be very careful whom you listen to, because there are some bad actors out there that are wrapping themselves in the cloak of conservatism and the cloak of republicanism, but they are anything but. They have been advocating for and not so surreptitiously pushing Islamist agendas frequently. And these are also the same people that are trying to hijack
Tucker, Candace. I mean, let's be honest. Candace was never a conservative to begin with. Tucker, look, I'm not sure really what happened with him. He used to be like kind of decent, but now he's so paranoid, folks, that like Tucker Carlson is even making Alex Jones look sane. Think about that for a sec, if you will. Also, I am trying to get Phil on here. Still, it seems that it seems like we're having a few technical issues here again. New Rumble Studio setup, so, and apparently the Rumble Studio app, I don't know if it's updated yet, but if they do update that for mobile, like, that would be helpful. I know they're still working the kinks out, so if Phil, can't join us, or people, via mobile can't join us, like, I know that they're working on improvements. So, yeah, but anyway, yeah. So Dana's about like ready to basically explain like the past 50-year history of what's been going on. Most of this I knew, but some of it I didn't. So, continuing on here.
Trump's own movement away from him because they think you're stupid. They think you have no idea about the lead up to this. So I want to break down everything that led up to this, because one of the big problems that I have with the way that all of this is being described, especially with those who disagree with POTUS's actions, and we'll talk about that coming up, is how this is somehow for Israel. And it's not for Israel. Anybody who knows the history of the United States with Iran knows you don't have to have Israel's involvement in it for the United States to have beef with Iran. I mean, we didn't bomb Iran because of Israel. Now, this is separate from whether or not you think we should, and we're going to get into that 2001 authorized use of military force. But this is different from whether or not you think that we should. The point is that it had nothing to do with Israel. I mean, if you really want to go back to it, you could look at the 976 Americans that have been murdered by Iran in the past, 47 years? Some of us haven't even been alive for as long as Iran has been terrorizing the world and the West, particularly the United States. I mean, we could go all the way back to 1979, when Iran technically already declared war on the West. You could go back to the Beirut embassy bombing. You could go back to the hostage crisis. You could go back to CIA Chief William Buckley being kidnapped and tortured and murdered tortured to death. The Kuwaiti air hijacking, TWA 47. We can go on and on. Colonel William Higgins, who was murdered by Iran, and that was in 89. Then we're not even touching yet. Notice how we're not even touching yet on the Houthis, on Hezbollah, on Hamas, on all of the little proxy groups that Iran has been funding. Let's not talk about the hundreds of service members that have been killed directly by Iran, by Soleimani, which is one of the things that POTUS mentioned accurately when he was there from the podium at this Medal of Honor ceremony. So, I mean, we could get into American troops by Iran-backed militias. Like I said, we could get into the hostage.
By the way, folks, yeah, I mean, all the events that she listed, like, especially the Beirut embassy bombings, Jack Carr has a really good book on the Beirut bombings in Lebanon. Targeted Beirut. You should check that one out. Iran was totally back that operation back in 1980 and wore our troops, down with just repeated bombings, and eventually we evacuated. That's why basically we showed that, terrorism does work in that instance because we evacuated. It was kind of untenable, but that's basically what happened. So yeah. Now 40, plus years later, we're finally we finally have taken the Ayatollah out. So
crisis. We could get into a number of things. We could get into them under Obama Biden boarding one of our vessels and making our troops and photographing it and disseminating it around the world, get on their knees with their hands behind their head as a propaganda psyop. And that was in going through the Strait of Hormuz. So we could do all of this. You don't even have to invoke Israel in order for the United States to want to kick the ever-loving hell out of Iran, to say nothing about death to America or the fact that Iran tried to assassinate the president of the United States. Let's not forget that. And they admitted it gleefully. So let's not forget that. So you don't even have to invoke Israel in this to note that the United States has had justifiable beef with Iran. And we're going to go over the history of it. Not only that, we're going to go all the way back to 2001 because this is going to be the big debate coming up after the War Powers Resolution. It's a 90-day thing. And then the president has to bring it to Congress. The 2001 authorized use of military force. There's a fight over the interpretations of it because you could argue technically Iran is not mentioned, but any party, what is mentioned, any entity that had party to 9/11 planning is technically covered by the 2001 authorized use of military force. And for the people who say that Iran had nothing to do with it, I will have you go back and look at how Iran gave a safe haven for al-Qaeda following 9/11 and even during and before. So we're going to go back to all of that. We're going to bring it up. And like I said, I'm just going to give you the information. You need to make the best decision for you based off the available information and not what some clickbait whore, digital prostitute that's getting paychecks from Qatar wants you to believe. So we're going to dive into.
again, that's Tucker Carlson she's referring to, and yeah, she kind of just gave the whole rundown, effectively of what's of the history. Like, even within my lifetime, yeah, Iran did give safe haven to the 9/11, orchestrators. That's that's reason enough for us to have, you know, justifiable, you know, anger towards them and whatnot. And, as of yesterday, I guess the US and Israel bombed another leader, ship meeting where they were planning on, electing, um, the leaders, allegedly. Or, I guess the Ayatollahs were trying to prop up like another, the regime is trying to prop up like another leader right now, but they can't because they keep getting bombed into the Stone Age. Which, to that I say, good. They deserve it. Absolutely. Uh, so. And, let's see, what else do we have here? Um, oh, yeah, so this popped up, this morning in my feed as well. Marco Rubio basically warned of the dangers of Iran back in 2015 when he was a senator, so just like a little over 10 years ago. Now, basically, and yeah, this was from 10 years ago, and everything that Rubio said about Iran then was true, and everything he said has kind of come to pass too, which is why it's you know good that we struck them, basically. So, uh, I will, Phil, look into this and see why people can't join via mobile because that sucks, and you absolutely should be able to join if you can. So, yeah, I'll look into that and let the Rumble folks know about that, Phil. That's partially why I'm doing this is to test out the studio a little more and kind of see what all the kinks are. So, but yeah, here's Rubio back in 2015 talking Iran's why they're dangerous as a nuclear power.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to come to the floor today to speak about the risk that Iran poses to the world and, as a result, the legislation that's before the Senate at this moment. A lot's been talked about in the media over the last months, years, quite frankly, about the notion that we're going to work out a deal with Iran that will prevent war. Sadly, I believe that the direction this deal is headed almost guarantees war. At some point, certainly in our lifetime, but maybe before the end of the decade. Let me back up and first describe what the issue is at hand. The issue at hand is that Iran, run by a radical Shia cleric, its government, I should say, its people, perhaps don't partake in this thought process, but its government, whose head and supreme decision maker is a radical Shia cleric, has made two decisions. The first is they feel it is their obligation to export their Islamic revolution everywhere in the world, and of course it begins with the Middle East. And two, they've decided they want to become the hegemonic power in the region. They want to become the dominant nation, the dominant movement in the Middle East and in that entire region. So how do you achieve that? Well, first, it requires you to drive the Americans out of the area, which is why we've seen them invest in all sorts of asymmetrical capabilities like these little small swarm boats that they use to sometimes harass U.S. naval vessels. That's why you see them just a week ago basically hijack a commercial vessel on the international waters. The second thing they do is they sponsor terrorism. They have all these proxy groups in all these countries in the region that are doing their bidding. That's also asymmetrical warfare. Asymmetrical meaning it's not frontal, it's using some non-traditional method to expand their power or to show their power. So they use these proxy groups like Hezbollah, or now with the group, the Houthis, that they're involved with in Yemen and in other parts of the world. And the threat is that if you attack Iran, these terrorist groups will attack you. And in fact, we have seen the hand of the Iranian government in terrorist attacks. For example, we saw an attempt to assassinate the ambassador of Saudi Arabia here in Washington, D.C. We know that in 1994, there was a bombing in Buenos Aires that was linked to Iran. So they sponsor terrorism. But the third aspect of their desire to become the hegemonic regional power is a nuclear weapon. What do you need to acquire a nuclear weapon? You need three things. The first thing you need is a bomb design. And the truth is you can buy a bomb design. The second thing you need is a delivery system, an ability to deliver the weapon, whether it's on an airplane or on a missile. And that is why Iran is developing long-range rockets. They're expending a lot of money, despite all the sanctions that are on them, they're expending a lot of money to build these long-range rockets. That isn't for some sort of fancy fireworks show. It isn't to put a man on the moon. They're building these long-range rockets because they understand that is the second critical component of a nuclear weapons program. And the third thing is you have to be able to get your hands on enriched uranium or reprocessed plutonium. And no one in the world is going to import to them weapons-grade uranium or plutonium. So they've decided to build the infrastructure to do it themselves. And they do it the way North Korea did it. They do it the way other nations have done it when they try to hide their program. They do it by claiming that they have a peaceful nuclear program that they're trying to build. In essence, their argument is, we don't want to build a weapon. We're just trying to build nuclear reactors so we can provide electricity. It makes no sense for two reasons. The first is this is an oil-rich country. They don't really need nuclear energy in order to provide cost-effective energy for their country. But the other is it costs so much money to build the equipment to enrich and reprocess. They could just buy.
Which that is very true. I hear that argument from the Iranian government sympathizers, mostly the environmental wackos who are anti-oil here. But yeah, like Iran literally is an oil-rich country, so it literally would make no sense for them to have nuclear energy. They don't need it. Even if they weren't like trying to go for nuclear weapons, to basically, fulfill some crazy Islamic, apocalyptic vision, it would be less cost effective for them. Like they have plenty of oil. They're in that region of the world. So yeah, Rubio is spot on here.
Buy it, already reprocessed or enriched, and ship it. Bring it into the country the way South Korea does, the way other nations do. So if it would be cheaper to bring these things in by simply importing it, as opposed to having to spend all this money enriching and reprocessing themselves, why are they spending all this money on the infrastructure? And the answer is because at some point in the future, they know they're going to want a nuclear weapon. Now, perhaps they haven't made the decision they need it today or next week or next year, but they certainly, at a minimum, want to have the option to be a threshold nuclear power. And I believe, knowing everything we know about them, both open source and classified, that whether they've decided or not to build a nuclear weapon, they will decide to build a nuclear weapon because it provides for them the sort of regime stability they crave. The radical Shia cleric that heads that country, he looks at North Korea and he looks at Libya. And he says, Libya is what happens when you don't have a nuclear capability. North Korea is what happens when you do. Muammar Gaddafi is dead and out of power. But North Korea is still run by that madman. Why? Because he has a nuclear weapon. You can't invade him or touch him because of what he'll do in response. And I think they're guided by that principle. They're guided by the principle that they want to be the regional hegemonic power, and nuclear weapons gives them that role. And they're guided by a third, equally sinister motivation. and that is the open and repeatedly stated desire to destroy the state of Israel, to wipe it off the face of the earth. They haven't said this once in passing. The supreme leader of Iran has said this on hundreds of occasions. In fact, every Friday in Iran, in government-sanctioned religious events, they chant death to America and death to Israel. And if there's one lesson of history, is that when a leader or a nation repeatedly says, we are going to kill you, you should take that seriously. And when the nation that says we are going to kill you is using its governmental money to sponsor terrorism, you should take that even more seriously. And when the nation that's going around saying we're going to kill you and wipe you off the face of the earth is reprocessing plutonium or enriching uranium, you have a right to be extremely scared. The world understood this 10 years ago, 8 years ago, and so it imposed UN Security Council sanctions on Iran, international sanctions. They were not easy to put together. A lot of those countries in Europe have companies that, in those countries that were dying to do business in Iran. They didn't want these sanctions, but they did them. They were in place. And then about a year and a half or two, the president decided it's time to try to open up to Iran and see if we can work a deal out with them. And look, in normal circumstances, there's nothing wrong with that, right? Two countries who have a disagreement on some issue, you can work things out. There's a place for diplomacy in the world. The problem is that the issue we have with Iran is not based on a grievance. They're not mad that we did something, and so that's why they're acquiring a nuclear weapon. And if only we stopped doing what it is that aggrieved them, they would go away. This is not a grievance-based problem. This is an ideological problem. Because if you read the founding documents of the Islamic Republic, it doesn't describe the supreme leader as the leader of Iran. Iran, it happens to be the country they operate from. It describes him as the supreme leader of all Muslims in the world. And
I want to pause here too, just to interject here too. The way Rubio is speaking about Iran and the Middle East in general, this is why he was chosen as Secretary of State. He understands international politics very well. This was a point I made actually back in 2015 because prior to me supporting Trump, and you can go back on this channel 10 years ago. Like I was Trump hesitant at first, and I was a Rubio guy, partially because, admittedly, I live in Florida where where Rubio's from, but also because of Rubio's knowledge of foreign policy and specifically of the Middle East region, which at the time, we were dealing with ISIS. Thanks a lot, Obama. And so, yeah, Rubio has always had good foreign policy chops. So I'm glad he's able to, to tap into that skill as Secretary of State, and whatnot. And right now there's the question of who will be the next candidate for the Republicans or president, and it's coming down between, Vance and Rubio, basically. So, very interesting. Continuing on, though.
that is why they believe that it is their goal, it is their mandate, it is their calling to export their revolution to every corner of the planet, but beginning in the Middle East. And a nuclear weapon capability would give them leverage in carrying out that goal that they have. And in their mind, nothing would be more glorious than the destruction of the Jewish state. So the president enters these negotiations, and it has been a process of constant appeasement. Moment after moment, we went from saying no enriching and reprocessing to you can enrich and reprocess at 5%, to you can enrich up to 20% for research purposes. We went from saying no enrichment ever to saying in 10 or 15 years, all bets are off. And there's still items in the negotiation that are not clear. You know, the White House put out a fact sheet. They put out a piece of paper and they said, this is what we agreed to. And Iran put out a piece of paper just like it, except it sounded like a totally different deal. For example, the US fact sheet said that sanctions on Iran would not come off until Iran complied. But Iran's fact sheet said, no, sanctions come off immediately. And now when you press the White House on it, they refuse to say that in fact it will be phased, not immediate. That's why I filed an amendment. And even though I think that the president's deal as outlined in the fact sheet was not good enough, I filed an amendment to at least hold him to that. And the amendment to this bill read very simply. It just said that whatever deal the president crafts has to reflect the fact sheet that he provided the Senate. But we couldn't get a vote on it. And the other amendment I filed is that any deal with Iran should be conditioned on Iran recognizing Israel's right to exist. And here's why that was so important. That was so important because this is not just about the nuclear program. The deal the president is trying to sign is about removing sanctions, meaning money is now going to flow back into the Iranian government's coffers. What are they going to do with this money? Are they going to build roads, hospitals? Are they going to donate to charity? No. Are they going to buy food and medicine for people that are hurting around the world, the hundreds of thousands that have been displaced by Assad, their puppet? No. They're going to use that money to sponsor terrorism. And the prime target of the terrorism they sponsor is the state of Israel. We couldn't get a vote on that amendment either. Apparently there are senators terrified of voting against that amendment, so they'd rather not have a vote at all. And so I am deeply disappointed by the direction this debate has taken, because I felt and I understand that this deal was carefully crafted. I'm on the committee that passed it. But I also understand that every member of the Senate has a right to be heard on this debate. And unfortunately, only a couple of amendments were allowed to be voted on, and no one else had an opportunity to get their amendments voted on, amendments that I thought would have made this bill much more meaningful. But now we've reached this point where the majority leader has filed cloture on the bill because it's time to move on to these other issues, and I respect that. And we have to make a decision. And the decision is not whether we're going to pass the bill we want or nothing at all. The decision is, are we better off as a country with this bill or with no bill? If we don't pass a bill, the Senate can still weigh in on the Iranian deal, but the Iranian deal kicks in immediately. And until the Senate acts, the sanctions will be off, at least the US sanctions will be off. There's also no guarantee that the White House will even show us the agreement if we don't pass a bill. If we pass a bill, it delays the sanctions being lifted for a period.
So that was back in 2015. I believe they did pass the bill, but again, we were under the Obama administration, which wasn't really effective at dealing with Iran. I mean, let's face it. Obama was the one who kept, talking at like lines in the sand and then basically not doing shit about, anything in regards to terrorism. And so, that's the problem. Point is, and why I brought that clip up of, Rubio's, he has always been someone who has, been consistent on Iran, specifically for the last, decade, which, in the grand scheme of things, folks, was not that long ago in all reality. So, yeah, all these people are just saying, oh, it's, this is all an Israel thing. It's, it's just simply not the case. While that video was playing, I did find an article that I want to read to you. I don't go to National Review very, very much because, they were kind of anti-Trump back in 2016. And so I don't follow them that closely, but you know, what's the saying? Even a a broken clock is right twice a day. National Review, I do check up on them, and they have written some good stuff from time to time lately. Most recently, they put out an article today that I thought was very interesting and worth a read. So I'm going to pull that up for you all here. And let me read this for you, ladies and gentlemen. This is National Review Online. And let's see. With the headline, Iran war proves Trump was right on Space Force. Because, yeah, this is something that the left has made fun of Trump for years. Oh, is this a Star Trek thing? Why, Trump, are you wanting to go, and have a Space Force thing? It makes no sense, and this is a waste of money. And this basically proves that, yeah, Trump was actually right to do Space Force. So, reading from the top, but this is also from Andrew Foley. Yeah, and this was published early this morning. And this is also from National Review Plus. So, yeah, people may need to subscribe to read this, but nonetheless, we're going to read it here. M. Making the Space Force the newest branch of the U.S. military is yielding clear benefits in Iran. In 20th century wars, the key was air power. In 21st century wars, it will be space power. This week's military actions against Iran in Operation Epic Fury show that if America desires peace on Earth, the ongoing conflict proves we must prepare for war in space. In the initial remarkable success the U.S. and coalition forces have demonstrated vindicates President Trump's decision to elevate the Space Force as the sixth and newest branch of the American military. The U.S. military's dominance in space, primarily through the U.S. Space Force, the National Reconnaissance Office, and associated assets under U.S. Space Command, played a pivotal role in the success of the early strikes against Iran, encompassing a network of satellites for intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance, or ISR, global positioning systems, GPS, communications, electronic warfare, and missile warning systems. At Monday's Pentagon news conference, alongside Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff's General Dan Kane, specifically credited Space Force's role in offensive and defensive military operations, saying, quote, they continuously layered effects to disrupt, distort, and confuse the enemy, and characterized both as the first movers that provided quote-unquote non-kinetic effects, disrupting and degrading and blinding Iran's ability to see, communicate, and respond. Prior to its 2019 establishment, responsibilities for space combat were widely distributed across different U.S. military branches, leaving America ill-prepared to fight a conflict. Just as the Air Force was rightly separated from the Army in 1947, elevating space to a co-equal service consolidates American expertise and allows our military to better control the high ground above the earth. At the start of the war, Space Command disrupted, degraded, and blinded Iran's sensory communications and response capabilities. This effectively rendered Iran blind to incoming threats, preventing early detection or coordinated retaliation as electronic warfare satellites jammed radar systems, interrupted command and control networks, and scrambled drone and missile guidance signals. When Iran attempted to attack an oil tanker to threaten the global economy, the regime appeared to have accidentally sunk a vessel sanctioned by the US and affiliated with Iran. For some reason, Iran destroyed one of their own vessels, and the likely reason is that their sensors were blind. In direct contrast, America's military can literally post high-definition videos of Iranian naval vessels being torpedoed. Without America's reconnaissance satellites, we would effectively be as restricted and uninformed as Iran is today. Without our communications, satellites, and GPS, we'd be just as lost. These capabilities enabled precise, coordinated, and overwhelming attacks while minimizing Iran's ability to detect or counter them effectively. This allowed US and Israeli aircraft to form a single synchronized wave of attacks in competitive safety. The only US air losses so far have been from friendly fire, a remarkable achievement given the scale of the strikes and a testimony to America's space dominance. In fact, these systems were so successful that the military ended up prohibiting the consumption of alcoholic beverages for active duty US Space Force squadrons, presumably to keep celebrations to a minimum. That's kind of hilarious, I will say. America's force of low-cost, uncredited combat attack systems, or LUCAS, kamikaze drones, which have absolutely devastated Iran, are controlled via satellite communications systems using SpaceX's Starshield system, the military counterpart to the civilian Starlink network managed by Space Force. These weapons have jam-resistant communications anywhere in the world where Elon Musk's network operates, yet cost only $35,000 each, far less than the $1.9 million per air-to-ground missile that they're fast replacing. US space dominance likely provided real-time reconnaissance through advanced satellites. This was crucial for identifying and timing high-value targets, possibly including up to the second tracking of of Iranian Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei's location during a meeting with his inner circle, enabling a disruption strike that killed him and other key leaders early in the operation. U.S. Central Command confirmed that every single one of Iran's 11 deployed naval vessels in the Gulf of Oman had been sunk by the third day of the war. This included modern Iranian frigates and the regime's precious and much hyped drone aircraft carrier. But the reconnaissance, which located these Iranian ships, and the precision guided munitions, which likely eliminated them, were reliant on American satellites. This ensured accurate hits on command and control hubs, ballistic missile sites, and nuclear-related infrastructure. Importantly, these actions simultaneously degrading Iran's ability to project power or retaliate effectively. Moreover, space assets provided early warning against Iranian counterattacks, which began shortly after the first strikes. Overhead persistent infrared or OPIR satellites and ground-based radars tracked missile launches in real time, alerting U.S. forces and enabling intercepts by systems like Patriot, Terminal High Altitude Area Defense, and Navy destroyers. This defensive layer was crucial during the first strike, as Iran fired missiles at U.S. bases in the Gulf and allied targets. More than 90% were neutralized mid-flight. The Space Force's calibration of these systems also disrupted Iran's use of one-way attack drones, often called Shahads, further limiting their response without significant U.S. losses. Without the advantages of the Space Force, built on decades of U.S. investment in orbital assets, the first strike might have faced heavier resistance, higher casualties, or less precision, potentially prolonging the conflict or reducing its initial impact. This is a massive improvement compared to the previous administration's unilaterally banned anti-satellite missile tests, which were halted in the mere hope that other countries would follow suit, putting America at a competitive disadvantage and effectively handicapping the country's defenses. The crucial importance of space has been obscured because every American conflict over the last few decades has been fought against minor powers. Operation Desert Storm was in many ways America's first space war because the Allied forces made extensive use of GPS for targeting. As I previously ran at National Review, getting ready to fight a war in space was one of President Trump's best ideas. America's initial success in this conflict proves it. And there you have it, folks. So Trump's, creation of the Space Force not only proved to be people thought it was a crazy idea, but not only has it, turned out to be a good idea, like it's already starting to kind of, pay for its worth in gold, as the saying goes, or rather, I guess, prove it's, worth its weight in gold. So there you have it. Things in Iran are looking up. The Ayatollah is dead. I'm sure they're going to try and do more shit. But as I also played last night on stream, the son of the Shah of Iran is he's looking to come back and take over as the leader, which it's about time that happened. So let me go ahead and I know I have that clip somewhere too, so let me switch over and find that. But yeah, overall, very good news coming out of Iran so far, with the Ayatollah being dead. And as I mentioned, folks, go and especially the guys, if nothing else, you can take away from this war, the Persian baddies, the Persian hotties, they've been liberated, and they can now come here, to the good old U.S. of A. They wouldn't want to go over to Europe right now, at least, not many of them. Probably not a good idea, honestly. So, let me see here. And I'm yeah, so, I played this clip last night. So I played this, clip last night, but, like I said, the stream for last night didn't record fully. So I wanted to play this clip, um, too. This is Reza, Pahlavi, who is the son of the Shah of Iran, who was ousted in the 70s, and he was on 60 Minutes past this week, 2 days ago, actually, talking about this whole situation in Iran, and he talked about President Trump in the operation. Uh, Basically to liberate Iran as he sees it. So this is his reaction. I want to play to kind of just end the show here. So let me play this clip again. And yeah, this is a pretty good take.
What is your message to President Trump?
My message to President Trump is that I'm here to echo and join millions of my compatriots inside and outside of Iran to thank him for having done and having the courage to do what is not easy, but intervene. And he will go down in the annals of Iranian history as the most celebrated foreign leader that changed the ball game and changed the world as a result.
In January, President Trump said this about you, quote, "He seems very nice, but I don't know how he'd play within his own country. I don't know whether or not his country would accept his leadership. And certainly if they would, that would be fine with me." You don't seem to have President Trump's wholehearted support.
Well, first of all, I don't think that somebody in my position will ever expect to have an official endorsement of a foreign government or a foreign leader. What I do know now is that millions of Iranians inside Iran and outside of Iran are calling my name. They recognize in me the person uniquely placed to play a role of transitional leadership. Not running for office, because that's not what I'm doing, but to be a bridge to that destiny.
What is your message to President Trump?
My message to President Trump is that I'm here to echo and join millions of my compatriots inside and outside of Iran to thank him for having done and having the courage to do what is not easy, but intervene. And he will go down in the annals of Iran.
Okay, so that loop there, but yeah. So there you have it. I think this is you know, kind of a good primer rundown on what's going on with Iran. The Ayatollah is dead, which we can all sleep a little easier, knowing that. Trump is 2 for 2 now with taking out scumbags, it seems. You know, he got Maduro in Venezuela. That was just last month. And this month, it's he went for the Ayatollah. Who knows? Next month he might get, the urge to, maybe. Well, I don't think he would. I actually don't think he would. Go after Kim Jong Un because Kim Jong Un actually seems to respect him. But who knows what dictator Trump will be going after next month? Because he's collecting trophies of America's enemies every month now, it seems, this year, and I'm here for it. Maybe like the head poobah of Antifa next month. I mean, they have been designated as a terrorist group after all, so that seems like it would be reasonable. But anyway, folks, thank you all so much for tuning in to this impromptu stream, and it does look as if we are still live, so that is that's a good thing here. So anyway, I want to thank everyone for tuning in, and friendly reminder, like I said, American Inferno, the next book in the John Ryder Shadows of Deception saga, hits shelves or virtual shelves on Tuesday. You can pick up your copy via Amazon. in paperback and ebook. Audiobook coming as soon. Narrated by the great Doug Green. That'll be coming later this month, hopefully, if not early April. And I do think this is my best work. And early reviews have been great from some of the people in the author community. So really hope you guys enjoy this, and I encourage you once again to please consider checking out American Inferno and also purchasing the other books in the Shadows of Deception saga. And with that, folks, that'll do it for this show. I will be back tomorrow with Morpheus for Bits and Bones tomorrow night, 10 p.m. Eastern. Saturday, I know Max and Maxine will be doing a stream of their own. And then I should be back Monday to do a Monday show. Either pre-recorded or with a guest, or maybe live. I don't know. We'll see. So, and thanks for bearing with me too as I navigate the new Rumble studio setup. Seems to be pretty good overall. Still a few hiccups that I will let Rumble know about, such as guests not being able to join via the mobile app yet. Apologies about that, Phil. Would have loved to have you on, and we will get you on at some point. But I appreciate everyone for tuning in live who was able to join me this morning, and always appreciate those who tune in and listen via the podcast as well on Spotify. So really appreciate all of you. Thanks for tuning in, and God bless. Take care, folks.